Morning, everybody. Getting a little later start to the morning today, 8:36 a.m. Welcome to my channel. CPI came out about 6 minutes ago, and it's up. All right. So we'll get into those numbers, but definitely core way up. I'm sorry. Sorry. The headline CPI way up than the previous. Okay, almost a full percentage. So that's probably crude factoring in. All right. Now, yesterday, really low volume yesterday. And then all of a sudden, the markets woke up with some positive news with Trump saying, speaking to Netanyahu to stop bombing. Markets ripped up, took me out of a trade. Um, and then the markets kind of just ranged. It's really what they did, is that they've ranged. Okay. Some stories from yesterday. Tech was not the leader. It was actually the laggard. And again, the SaaS software got destroyed. ServiceNow, big laggard, Intuit, Adobe, Palantir, all got hit pretty hard. Okay, Palantir actually is getting hit even more this morning. Let's see, ServiceNow is getting hit even more this morning. So more Anthropic agents. So that is still a thing. Okay, crude this morning is down. Okay, so yesterday I pretty much had, I think, 3 or 4 trades, and I basically was a small green day. That's how that went yesterday. Now, let's get into this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. You use market profile and bond profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposed levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. That is how I come up with game plans. Now, once the market opens, I use my bread and butter, my market internals. Use a little ICT, smart money concept thrown in there with some anchored VWAPs and the weekly expected move indicator that I give for free on my Discord. Now, speaking of that, SPX hit its expected move to the upside. QQQ hit its expected move to the upside pre-market. And SPY has hit its expected move to the upside. Does that mean you short the heck out of this market? No. But the market did, according to the options market, hit what risk was put in for those instruments, those tickers. Okay. Generally means probably most likely we can maybe go above there a little bit, but a lot of that now is moved to the expected move. Usually you don't get a lot of further upside to that. Today maybe we range. I don't know. Okay? Now, hopefully, join me every day, every morning. Give you the market story, economic calendar, technical analysis, and I give you the long and short trade scenarios in NASDAQ and ES futures later on in the stream. If you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That is Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Let me be your indicator. Okay? Now, let's get right into futures. Watch list here. This is post CPI. We still have Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. Bitcoin. Wow. Bitcoin's at 72.5. Interesting. Up 0.29. Russell's up 0.28. Nasdaq's up 0.25. Ethereum up 0.25. ES up 0.16. Dow flat. 10-year yield flat. 30-year bonds flat. Dollar down 0.16. Gold down 0.35. Silver down 0.40. Crude is down over a 0.5%. VIX is down 1.54. Now the VIX is falling under 20. Now we're in positive gamma. Okay, means we're not going to be as volatile. I mean, of course, when the news comes out, you can. Okay, Max 7 Plus. Meta still continues to pump higher, up 1.05. Broadcom up 1.04. AMD at 0.66. Laggard, Apple. The only thing that I've seen with Apple so far is that foldable phone being delayed or something like that. All right, maybe there's something else today, but I'm not sure. Top sector stocks. get into it. GEV, woo, telling you, my baby's gonna hit 1,000, almost up 1%. Okay, Uber up 0.57, Caterpillar up over 0.5%. Lagging, Oracle down over 1%. Palantir down over 1% again. Okay, software are really taking a hit. Sectors. Now, yesterday was a very odd day, meaning semis were up 1.69% from the open, but technology, which semis are inside technology, now at the end of the day, it looks like it finished up, but it was red most of the day. Okay, so semiconductors are this morning are up 1%. Risk on, generally. That means technology up 0.30. Okay, lagging, financials barely, energy barely. Okay. Now move on. Economic calendar. So we already talked about the results. Now we can go over them. So core, which is what the Fed cares about, excludes food and energy. We expected 2.7 and came under 2.6. Remember, that excludes food and energy. Now, CPI year over year. We expected 3.3. We got 3.3. But guess what? The last reading was a 2.4. The last reading was a 2.4. It almost went a percentage over. Now, you have a big wick in the markets right now, probably because of that big jump. It was expected, but it is a big jump. And what do you think crude? I think crude has a 3-month lag on the CPI readings. So it's probably not going to go down. Okay, I know rent, I think, is still the most 40% of the CPI weighting. All right, so then we have 10 a.m. We have Michigan consumer sentiment that generally does move markets. So be on the lookout for 10 a.m. All right, now there is something I need to talk about. Let's see if there's anything new here. I don't think there really is. But what I did see with Trump at 6 p.m. today, he said he's going to make an announcement. Okay. Let's see if there's anything in here. No. All right. He said 6 p.m. he's going to make an announcement. Here it is. The president departs Trump National Doral, Miami, en route to Miami. I'm pretty sure it's today. I'm pretty sure I saw 6 p.m. Maybe it's 9 p.m. He's going to make an announcement. Now, some people are saying that he's going to stop the ceasefire. That's the rumor. That he's going to say, nope, ceasefire, we're taking that away and we're going to continue. I don't know. But that's what I've seen on the rumors, which means nothing. But that's kind of crazy. Like, why would you make another announcement? I don't know. Last time it was a nothing burger when he talked about this, but I don't know. Okay? Moving on to some news. Bessent Powell warned bank CEOs about Anthropic model risks. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell convened an urgent meeting with bank CEOs this week to warn of cyber risk posed by Anthropic's latest AI model. All right, Anthropic weighs building its own AI chips. Geez, Anthropic's just doing a lot. Meta pulls ads aimed at recruiting plaintiffs for social media addiction lawsuits. Apple leads smartphone market even as overall shipments decline. SpaceX begins installing equipment at Texas facility, eyes year-end production. Let's read this little thing. Wall Street futures were subdued as investors stayed on the sidelines ahead of a closely watched U.S. inflation report, which we already got, while also assessing the fragility of the truce in the Middle East. A March reading of the Consumer Prices Index due later in the day will be the focus. Consumer prices are expected to have risen 3.3% year over year, marking their biggest increase in nearly 4 years and potentially further dampening expectation for interest rate cuts from Federal Reserve this year. Markets will also watch a preliminary reading of the University of Michigan's April Consumer Sentiment Survey after the open. All right. Let's see what they did in Europe. Europe, the stock 600 rose and was set for the third consecutive weekly gain. Asian shares ended higher, with Japan Nikkei's capping its steepest weekly rise in more than a year, as optimism over corporate earnings and technology investment outweighed worries about Middle East tensions. Stocks in mainland China and Hong Kong also advanced, with the Shanghai benchmark snapping a run of 5 weekly declines, supported by signs of accelerating domestic inflation that pointed to an end to prolonged industrial deflation. Okay. Apple. Let's see. The company said on Thursday that it will shut down its retail store in Townsend, Maryland, the first of its U.S. locations where retail employees successfully unionized in 2022. Interesting. All right. I think we're done here. Now, remember yesterday I said money was flowing into technology, right? We showed it on the bullish percent index. We're going to check in on that, okay? And credit spreads. I don't think the credit spreads report are real time. Yeah, this is the Wednesday. This is Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, they don't update. So credit spreads have went down, so that fear is not there. Let's go to the bullish percent index. Breath at 49%. Percentage of stocks over the 50-day moving average. Now let's get into the bullish percent index. Okay, we were kind of middling yesterday. Let's see. Yesterday rose. 59% of stocks are on buy signals in the S&P 500. Let's look at the tech. 53. See, it took a hit yesterday. 53% at buy signals in the NDX. Okay, so that went down a little bit, like I was talking about yesterday. Money flowed out of tech a little bit yesterday. Let's drill down a little steeper to Infotech specifically. That took a turn down. Yesterday we were all the way up to 68%, and then yesterday we're down to 57%, just like I was talking about. Financials. What did they finish yesterday? Financials finished green. Let's see here. So financials got 67% on buy signals. Once you get into the 80s, you're going to get a little overbought. I said I was interested in financials here, and JP Morgan, I probably don't want to look at that chart because I was interested in going long in that around this time, but I don't know where it went. Okay, that's your bullish percent index breadth charts. Boom. Now let's move on. Let's move on. We're going to go into market internals. They were pretty strong yesterday. Okay, now look at this garbage. There was nothing going on. And then, Netanyahu. Trump said, I'm going to talk to Netanyahu, tell him to stop bombing. And the market liked that. And then we just ranged. Now, notice this green line. That's the weekly expected move to the upside in the SPX, 68.17. And the market went above it, but couldn't go too much above it. Okay. Internally, it was kind of like, It was just the news here that run up happened, but the market wasn't like crazy strong. Okay, it wasn't insane. Okay, that's your market internals. Now, moving on, we're gonna move on to daily charts. Okay, look at our good old SPY here. All right, you can see right here clearly on the daily chart. Hit my weekly expected move indicator right there. Closed above the 100-day moving average. Closed above the year-to-date anchored VWAP and the 50-day moving average. Okay, notable. All right, where are we now? 681s. Interesting. We're still gapping up right at yesterday's highs. Right now, at the highs. Pretty crazy. Okay, let's look at futures. Futures hit the 100-day moving average right there. Now look at this. Now one day you had one day that broke a low, but then it's been higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. Right? That's called one time framing. And there's momentum, but look at these bars right there. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Look at that. Right? So interesting, right? Interesting. Q's almost hit its expected move yesterday, but in pre-market it did. Okay, remember what I talked about this 613 level, right? That was a good key resistance. You closed over the 100-day moving average, or over the anchor view up to the year. That was kind of support yesterday. right? Let's look at let's look where we are now. Let's call it 612. Gapping up. Gapping up today, 612. You're playing around with that expected move. Okay, now you got CPI that was expected to be high, but like I said, it could take cuts off the table for the whole year. Okay, futures. Futures. All right, look at that. Almost hit that resistance I've talked about all week right here. 25457s hit the 100-day moving average in futures, the NASDAQ. Okay, currently, folks, we are right above. Now the 25236 is the most traded price of the rolling year. I'll say it again, of the rolling year, not just this year. Of a year ago today, that's where the NASDAQ is above. Big time volume. And you'll see it. You'll definitely see it in another chart I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, now let's move on to hourlies. You'll see a big ass wick here. Okay, all right, let's go into the hourlies. Okay, so what do we got here? There's that news. Whoop, right? Big time demand zone here. Look at all that. Boom, right? Most traded price of the week, still at 68.15s, right? We got a daily candle here. We got a 4-hour here that has that wick, right? You just broke yesterday's highs with this wick though, and now you're coming back in because the CPI is not that great, right? People don't know probably. And we went into supply, right? Into supply from the past, and we have another range. So this is pretty good channel here, right? Good balance. So if you close back inside here, I think there's a good shot you're going to go right at this level around the 68.50s. Okay, then you have a bullish fair value gap from the news. Again, that's poor structure. You look at it both ways. If the market gets weak, whoop, and take it right back. Okay, that's the name of the game. You're in above is heavy supply. We're getting a wick from the CPI being obviously almost 1% up. Okay. Now let's look at the Qs. There's that box right there. Okay, that's the most traded price of the rolling year. Okay, you have the most traded price of this year right here. And the NASDAQ is holding above it. Pretty bullish for the time. But we came into supply, right? Now we're getting a wick from that CPI. Okay, heavy demand down here to 251s. Right, big time demand, stack demand here, bullish for value gap. And now we don't have that beautiful channel. It's kind of okay, but not like the ES exactly. Just a very heavily traded area. Okay, very heavily traded area. So the level that we might take out if you go down definitely is a 252. Okay, 252. Okay, so that coming into supply, heavy supply, might need to visit here, and maybe you can eat down all the way back to here below the 251s. I don't know. Okay, bunch of different liquidity levels. You can see these lines are liquidity levels from the past above us. So we'll have to see. That's the hourly charts. Okay, now we're going to move over to the volume profile, market profile. All right, and look at this as in what we're doing. Okay, this is your market profile and volume profile. Now before I do that, I'm going to show you the daily chart of the NASDAQ to show you. Well, that's one. This is where I have this chart, right? It shows you this is now the most traded price of the rolling year, 25233s. This is the most traded price of this year, 25032s. Notice those big high volume nodes there. That's from a year ago. That's this year. The green is this year. The white is from a year ago. Okay, I'll go one step further in a daily chart. Look at that big high volume node right there. Look at all of this volume that's been traded there for the whole year. That's a big high volume node. Okay, this could cause a lot of crisscross choppiness. Right now, if it takes it out, holds the 257s, then you can go higher. But now you have this poor structure here, right here, and maybe this is all this means. You just get resistance here, and this can come really crashing down. I don't know. Let's look at the ES on a daily. You're actually at a decent high volume node here, 68.76, but the most traded price of the wrong year is 69.38. That has not yet to be hit, but you could see the thick volume we're going into. Look to the left. Look at all this volume we're about to go inside. This is going to slow down the market. Okay, we already now have come a long way. So just keep that in mind. We hit the expected moves to the upside, and you can see the heavy volume we're going into. Okay, now let's get into the ES long and short trade scenarios. Okay, let's break out the session. Alrighty. So we were gapping up until CPI came out. Okay, or I think initial rise in CPI came out, and then market's like, I don't know if I like that. So we're back inside, beat yesterday's highs. Now this is the most traded price of yesterday, 68.64. All right, that's a mini. This is all mini wins for the ES bulls, because now you're accepting price above this level, accepting price above the 68.15, which is the most traded price of the week. That's just bullish momentum. It's telling you everybody's buying the market. Okay, so that's what's been going on. All right, so there's our range that I talked about, right? So let's get right into scenarios here. Now, I don't know what's going to happen today, but we got to talk about scenarios. If I want to go long, okay, there is a bullish FVG starting at 68.52s. That's right below the overnight lows. So, okay, if the market decides to open and drive lower, breaking the overnight lows, any support inside this bullish FVG like this and a higher low, you're going to want to attack probably yesterday's high 68.76 and the overnight high 68.88s, and maybe go to 6900. Again, I would like to have tech be strong today, right? But yesterday it wasn't, and the market still moved up because of that news. Okay, now technically you still have to be bullish even if we were just to drop down. Now again, I'm not sure how the market shapes like this, but if the market was to drop all the way down to this large demand zone in 68.15, and let's just say it recovers it and holds it, the 68.15s, the most traded price of this week, you could still have a nice long. All right, maybe target that 68.63s. Okay, and that could be our playground for today. You lose the 68.15s, that's another story. All right, and that brings me to shorts. For a short, okay, you already got kind of a sweep out of this range, right? So you'd want to see some type of close inside here, inside back in this range. And this might be quick off the open with the supply here. And you want to go short. You're going to target the overnight low, 68.50. Now, below that is a bullish FVG. However, if the market is weak, you're just going to take this out like nobody's business and go target that 68.15. Now, 68.15 gets lost. Ooh, you could probably go down to 67.80s, and there's even a bigger void under that. Now, I'm not sure if that happens today, but there is a gap that's a monster all the way down. Woo. So the top of that gap is 67.80. That would be crazy. Okay. Now, that's probably the only thing I'm interested in the short. Okay. So that's the scenarios. Now, we're going to move on. NASDAQ. NASDAQ is still gapping up. Semis are just getting money flows right now. Okay. They are getting the money for those. So let's talk about the NASDAQ long and short trade scenarios now. Let's break out the session. Okay. So when we're gapping up, levels we want to look at. Gap fill. 25273 is yesterday's highs. Remember, we're battling this most traded price of the rolling year, 25236. That's that brown box right here. Okay. The green box down here is the most traded price of this year. So we're in a heavily traded area. Okay. Heavily traded. Now, that the level we want to concentrate on is about the 251s. That just is the demand, the most traded price of this year and this week. Okay. So that's what we're looking at. Now, let's get right into scenarios now. Okay. So if I want to be long, okay, same kind of deal. Let's get this level for you. This bullish fair value gap starts at 25161s, 25161s. So if this market does the sweep, closes inside this range, lower high, and comes down and breaks the overnight lows, the 25193s, and goes right into these single prints and the bullish FEG, okay, and you get support in here, that happens to be, what is this, 25116s is the 50% retracement of yesterday, and you get a higher low, and the market's not that weak, I would say, go and target whatever the high a day is, which we don't know what that would be, and then maybe 25366. Okay? That's something I'm really going to be watching. Okay? Now, if we get a deeper pullback, right, and we hold the 25050s, right, right here, and let's say the market is not that weak, comes down there quickly, you're supportive, maybe you can get long up here and target the 25236. That's about all I'm looking at there. Like I said, I'm not crazy about a long up in here. Heavy supply, we hit the weekly expected moves in all three instruments, SPX, SPY, and QQQ. I'm not looking to get long up there. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, short. I have a feeling this could be quick. Okay. Now, we just went into supply. Market's not liking the CPI and broke out of this consolidation, right? If we close back in here and you get some type of push up, then a lower high, you're probably going to look at a short, taking out all this trading from that range, and you're going to target the overnight lows, 25193s. Okay. You probably, if you don't get too much support, are going to test that bullish FEG. Remember, you have single prints here, so you got to look at this both ways. If the market's truly weak, this won't mean nothing, and the market can go all the way down to at least the 251s. Okay. There's a lot of demand and a lot of levels here. I don't know if you can really push through that right now. If you did, let's say, cut through the 25050s, and then there's a major level, let's just call it 24950s. That would be the end of major demand and a lot of levels. You can see that support here. Below that is the gap. The gap starts at about 24926. Like I said, this is really bad if the market is weak, because there's nothing holding this market back to go all the way back down. But like I said, I don't know if that truly happens today. The president is, like I said, I believe it's 6 o'clock tonight, is going to make some statement, and obviously markets will be closed. Maybe that's on purpose. I don't know. Okay. I think probably without any news, we just hold inside This 250s to the 253s today in the Nasdaq. All right, that's more probable. But every day there's news, so you never know. Okay, so my overall thought on the markets today. Okay, I know my indicator says we hit the expected move to the upside. I shouldn't really be expecting much more moves to the upside. Okay, now can that be not the case? Yes, but it's a 70% probability that it is the move, and I like those odds. Okay, so I'm not looking too long above that expected move indicator. I'm really not crazy about it. That's why I'd rather have a pullback. So I have to keep that in mind. Right? We're right above them. Now when you like play with those expected moves to the upside and you're not like ripping through them way above, then they're doing their job. Okay? They're doing their job. So today, if I had to guess, I think we're just going to be in a range today. We have overhead supply. We hit the weekly expected moves in SPY, SPX, and the QQQ in a lot of major stocks. So I think we're going to be range bound today without any pending news catalyst. Okay? I think there'll be trades. There always is. But that's what my main thought today. Now, so range bound, we hit expected moves to the upside, right? And we have 10 a.m. Michigan consumer sentiment, which generally does move markets. I generally don't like to be in a trade before that because it usually does move markets. Okay? So if I'm in something at 940 or something, yes, I won't care about it too much. But 950, 955, probably not going to do anything till the dust settles. Okay? That is it for me today, folks. All right? Now, hopefully, you smash that like button for me. Smash that like button. Make my channel love you. Okay? Now, hopefully, join me every day. Subscribe so that alert, give you the market story, the economic counter, the leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I just gave you the long short trade scenarios in the Nasdaq and the ES futures. All right. And if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Please come in, ask questions. All right. I'm just giving you the probabilities. That's what my main job is to do, is what I normally see in my almost 7 years experience watching markets. Okay. So please join. I should be going live around 9:50 a.m. today. All right, join my community. Now, we have our plans, folks. Let's see what we get today. All right, hopefully the volume's not abysmal. Okay, next week should probably get a better volume because this is spring break and it's been good. It's been good. Yesterday was whoa. I don't know what was going on yesterday. So let's see. Remember, usually after 1 p.m. on a Friday, nothing is great. So hopefully, whatever I do today, it's done, and I close up shop for the week. All right. So, everybody, have a great day. Remember, no trade's a trade. Hope everybody has a green day. That's always what you want. Okay. And if I don't see you in my Discord, I will see you Monday morning. Take it easy.